I don't really know how to start shows.
Come on now, don't start liking me now.
So yeah, I'm funny compared to, well, you'll see later. I stand for mayhem! I know a lot of idiots who think a lot of is mean-spirited just because it goes against what they believe. But the relief of comedy is it takes things that aren't funny and it allows us to laugh about them for an hour.
We got a purple suit to buy and a gigantic coffin.
Why are you laughing?
Evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Why Are You Laughing, a history of comedy podcast. And today, I'm pleased to introduce to you Louis C.K.'s Shameless, a special that premiered on HBO in 2007. For those of you guys that don't know, every once in a while, we do a special or album breakdown. It was kind of the original idea for the show. That's why our first episode ever was The Day the Laughter Died by Andrew Dice Clay. It's interesting because with Louis C.K., there are three specials in particular that kind of like meld together in my mind. And that would be Shameless, Hilarious, and Chewed Up, which all came out in about a 3-4 year span. And those are what kind of launched Louis into being like the guy for a long time until, I don't know what happened, something in 2017. I can't remember. So these three specials all seem very similar to me. The background is very similar. What he's wearing is essentially the same. Even the font on the logos and like when it says directed, the credits and all that, the font is even the same for all three specials. So they just kind of blend together in your mind. So I thought it'd be cool throughout the course of the show. We won't do them back to back or anything. But like we did with Delirious and Raw for Eddie Murphy, we'll kind of go through these three and see, I guess, which we enjoyed more. Because what was interesting about going back and listening to Shameless is you still, the Louis C.K. isn't fully polished yet. I think the guy we know now as one of the greatest comedians ever, he's not fully there yet. So it was kind of interesting to watch this special because there are clips of him. I remember when I used to listen to stand-up on Pandora and you would just get random clips. There's a clip from like early 90s or maybe even the late 80s. And it's Louis. And you can tell, like, they're Louis-ish jokes, but it almost feels like an open micer doing Louis, if that makes sense. Like, it doesn't feel like him yet.
That's a good description.
And there's a little bit, like, this is a hilarious special, but there's a little bit of this where he's almost like trying to please the audience or trying to relate to the audience a little more than he would now. Like, now his whole persona is not really giving a fuck whether or not the audience is enjoying it. So we'll see if you guys agree with me as we go through this special. But if you like these episodes, if you wish you could get them a week early, then become a Patreon or YouTube member. You get early access to episodes as well as bonus content. As of right now, our latest bonus episode is the Fez Whatley versus Legion of Skanks episode, which is kind of related to last week's free episode. So go check that out if you like the Fez Whatley stuff, and join the Patreon or YouTube if you want more content, or subscribe for free. Support the show for free anywhere you get podcasts, including YouTube. Get those numbers up, baby. 5-star reviews, like, comment, share, whatever you can do to help that algorithm, because that's what matters these days. Doesn't matter if the podcast is good, as long as we fit the algorithm. That's what I always say.
That's the strategy we got to go with, according to Hack Red.
Yeah, that's right. Our overlord demands it. We do put up clips, some like we have these clips recently that kind of don't really have context, but that's what the algorithm wants, and I'm like, well, it's getting a lot of views, so that works.
I have no idea. I
watch the show and find out what we're talking about. It doesn't matter.
I've tried to figure out how that shit works, even remotely, and I can't. I don't get it.
Whatever. But yeah, blindmike.net is where you can support the show. We appreciate it.
Long story short, blindmike.net.
Exactly. All right, let's get into some Louis, huh? This is Louis C.K. Shameless. Let's start right at the beginning.
Thank you. Thanks. That's very nice. Hello, everybody. How are you? Good. Thank you. Oh, good. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. Thanks for not dying before you got here. It could have happened. Thanks for getting through the traffic. I drove here, and on the way here, I saw a bumper sticker on a car, and it said, "Tell your girlfriend I said thanks." Isn't that a little personal for a bumper sticker, really? A bumper sticker should be like, hey, I'm in front of you, whatever, you know. Not, hey, I fucked your girlfriend. You really you want that on your car all day for whoever's behind you? Tell your girlfriend I said thanks. How does he know I'm not behind him? Just getting mad and crazy, taking it personal, motherfucker. I follow him home. I get out of my car in his driveway with a pipe. What the fuck does that mean? Thank her for what exactly? Wait a minute, you fucked my girlfriend? Then you made that bumper sticker and found me in traffic and got in front of me? Motherfucker. I just beat him to death with a pipe right there in his driveway. And jerk off on his corpse.
Standing ovation.
So I remember, and it was symbolism, honestly, for what would come later, I guess. But
There's a lot of that in the special.
yeah, we'll get there. But what I remember most about that joke is, I swear this was on Comedy Central that I was watching. I don't know, maybe there was a licensing agreement between HBO and Comedy Central at the time or something that would make sense. But I remember late at night, I was at my dad's house watching. I just threw on a comedy special. I didn't know what this was. I just saw it was on Comedy Central and was like, give it a try. And I remember there was something about that joke that got me, and it taking the turn of him jerking off on the corpse for absolutely no reason, where I was like, oh, this is different than the other stuff I've seen. Because like at that time, I liked like Jim Gaffigan and Brian Regan and guys like that that are still very funny. But I was like, oh wow, that's such a weird, dark twist to put in there for no reason. And I remember just clicking with me even as a kid, like, and part of it is, you know, you're 16 years old and you just like dirty humor like that.
Yeah.
But there is something about Louie where it's just his the absurdity of his act. Like him and Chappelle are two guys that you kind of think is like highbrow comedy. But the two bits that stand out to me that are I shouldn't say that's one of my favorite Louie bits, but like one of my favorite Chappelle bits ever is when he's talking about the baby standing on the corner selling crack.
Yeah.
Obviously, I suspect that didn't really happen. I suspect it was an absurd thing in Dave's mind that he made into a brilliant bit. Similar to that, where it's like with Louie, you think of them, and Carlin has a lot of this too, where what Carlin did later in his career became very philosophical. But he was also like, he would talk about farting and shitting. Like he would just be very silly sometimes. And I think that's the best Louie, is being completely absurd. And what I like about Louie, and I think getting canceled did this to him a little bit, is you started to see him, like he was wearing a suit on stage. He was wearing his glasses. That's when he was being very serious.
Yeah.
He sent out an email to his followers talking about what a great mother Hillary Clinton was and all that.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
I know Bob is Craig, but that's when you started to see serious Louie. And I think getting canceled kind of knocked him off of that. So he's never had this phase of his stand-up where he's taking himself too seriously. And I think you see Chappelle entering that stage now. His last special was void of that, which I liked, but it started with like a Henry David Thoreau quote. He still wears his logo on stage and stuff like that. Like there's an element of Dave Chappelle smelling his own shit that I don't think Louie ever quite had, at least on stage. There are some instances off stage, but on stage, I don't think he ever had that, and it wasn't reflected in his material. And so far, he's the one guy that's gotten to that level of like elite. And I think that's really only a prior. You know what? I think weirdly, I think Chappelle and Carlin are very similar, and Pryor and Louie are similar in that Pryor and Louie kind of remained who they were throughout their career, whereas Carlin and Chappelle kind of started taking themselves more seriously, and like their words had more meaning.
Yeah, once Chappelle started calling himself the GOAT on stage, you're like, well, there's nowhere to go but back to normal.
Right. I mean, he's still very funny, but he hasn't put anything out as good as Killing Him Softly since Killing Him Softly,
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. So one other thing I should mention, a fact about Shameless, is this came out the same year as Lucky Louie on HBO. So as networks often do, like I think Netflix even would do this with Bill Burr. Like a Bill Burr special would come out a couple weeks before F is for Family premiered, something like that. So it's kind of a marketing tool to be like, oh, I want to see more from Louie. And then Lucky Louie, I thought was a very good sitcom. It was similar to Roseanne in the sense that it was like a drab look at American Family. It wasn't this polished set or anything like that. And the subject matter they talked about was very dark. And on HBO, they could curse and talk the way, married couples would really talk. So I thought it was good, but it got canceled after only one season. So it didn't really take off.
Yeah, and I found out actually, I saw Norton. Did you hear him on Rogan? His last appearance?
Yeah, they talked about it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, the views were actually like going up significantly every week. They just decided not to do it.
Well, he made an interesting point that HBO cared a lot. Like they had this is like right when The Sopranos was ending. You have Sex in the City, and even like Entourage was very critically acclaimed at that time. Curb Your Enthusiasm. You have all these shows that are getting like, awards and critical acclaim, and I think they got very skittish about having this goofy sitcom with Nick DiPaolo and Jim Norton on it.
Perfect cast.
It could have been great, but they panicked and canceled it. I had one other thing to say, but maybe I'll think of it during this next clip.
Yeah, we got a public bathroom.
All right, let's hear it.
I was at a bar the other night. Doesn't matter where because I'm lying, but
Okay, right there. That's one thing that Louie is great at, is tearing down these kind of fake walls that comedians put up, but still getting you to laugh at the joke.
Yeah.
So we'll hear that again, and he's telling you like this isn't a real scenario, but I'm still gonna make you laugh. It's almost like challenging himself, like the way they used to say Damon Wayans, once he got famous, would dig himself a hole and do like his worst material up front or his raunchiest material up front, just to turn people off so that they stop thinking, oh, this is Damon Wayans.
Yeah,
This is almost a way of like getting people to stop thinking they're at a comedy show and then get them back over the course of one joke.
when you brought up the baby selling crack thing, which probably like I don't think that actually happened. I was gonna bring this up, but I forgot where in the special it was. So
Yeah, right here.
I was like, he just kind of says it.
Yeah.
I was at a bar the other night. Doesn't matter where because I'm lying, but I was at a bar and I was waiting for the bathroom for a really long time. There's a guy in the bathroom and I'm waiting for him. And then after a while, this guy that works there walks by. He goes, "Are you still waiting?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So he bangs on the door and he goes, "Come on, asshole, shit and get out." And then he walks away.
That became a very funny scene in the show, Louie, on FX with Big J. Okerson and Chelsea Peretti, I believe.
That's right.
And there are some jokes in here like that where it's like just Louie throwing that out there. And it's like a funny enough concept that he doesn't even really write a punchline. He's like, just here's something I thought of happening. And then he just moves on, like next joke.
Here's me telling you this very funny thing about say it didn't come close to happening.
Yeah. By the way, for those of you that have made it this far in, I should note, I usually like to preface these episodes by saying, yes, if you're looking at the time, this is an hour and a half breakdown of a 1 hour special. So just buckle up. If you haven't figured that out already.
Next, we have a unique food item.
All right.
You know when the grocery stores in Chinatown, they're for the Chinese people to eat their actual food, and I was in one of those, and they had duck vaginas. I swear to God, a huge barrel of fucking duck vaginas with a scoop stuck in it. And I'm standing there just staring at this fucking huge thing, and I'm thinking, can we possibly dominate a species more than that? Than that we're selling their vaginas in a fucking barrel? Fucking ducks are just like, dudes, Jesus. You won the war, take it easy. You don't have to sell our vaginas. I didn't get any because I don't want to know what if I love duck vaginas? I don't want to find out. It's not like millions of things taste like a fucking duck vagina. It would be very specific to be addicted to that. Not for me.
It's that kind of, again, that goes back to, I don't know if Louie was actually in a store that had a duck vagina sign over a barrel of duck vaginas. I don't know if that happened, but it is like a thought that came into his brain. And we talked about this on the Blind Mike Project when we talked about Hassan Minaj, where Hassan Minaj was exposed basically as a liar. And his defense was like, hey, comedians take things on stage and make them absurd and twist them or stretch the truth or just make up scenarios all the time. And our breakdown of that was essentially like the examples I would use of that are Chappelle and Louie. And I mean, there are a bunch of others, but those are probably the two best at it. And like, listen to that, what that was with Louie. It wasn't a stance on duck vaginas. That's the difference. It's taking that like, hey, if this were to happen, this is kind of a funny, interesting observation. He's not now advocating for, Duck Lives Matter or anything like that. Whereas Hassan Minaj told a story that didn't happen and there were no punchlines. I think that's always been the difference is, even when Louis gets philosophical is probably the wrong word, but when he's making a statement like use of the N word or the F word, which he talks about in other specials over the next couple of years, it's not like a stance where he's trying to change your mind on anything. He's giving you his opinion. You can agree with it or disagree with it, but hopefully you laugh at it. That's the main intention.
Yeah, can you tell the difference between a barrel of duck vaginas and maybe lying about being in like the North Tower on 9/11?
Right. Yeah, right. Well, it's also what's interesting is a clear descendant of Louis C.K. would be our friend Shane Gillis. Both talked about both got canceled and both talked about duck vaginas or ducks in Chinatown rather.
That's right.
So it was Louis' influence that ruined Shane, I think.
Oh man, and he's now just rolling in cash.
Yeah, no, it ruined him. He didn't get on SNL, and now his career's done. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he's fucked. Next we have annoying friend.
Okay, and by the way, and because the specials blend together, I wasn't sure. I was like, do I like Shameless the most, or Hilarious, or Chewed Up? And going back and watching, like they each have jokes that get quoted all the time, or even just ideas that you don't realize you're quoting Louis. So I think over the course of the next few jokes, we stumble into things that just became part of the zeitgeist. The way you find that with movies a lot. Louis is one of the first stand-ups of my lifetime that I found that happening with, where like you're quoting things and people are, oh, that's a Louis C.K. idea, and they're not even quoting Louis,
Right.
I have this friend, he has a phone that can IM, he can instant message, and so now I really want him to die because I'm sick of getting these fucking messages from him on his phone. I'm in a shoe store. That's the whole message. We're not secret agents. I don't need to know where you are. So I get this message from him. He says, I'm on an airplane in Seattle. So I wrote back and I said, well, I hope your plane crashes. And he gets pissed off and he calls me, take it back. We're about to take off. I'm like, fuck you. I hope it crashes. I don't have to take it back. Hope it crashes twice. Hope it crashes and kills Happy and they go, fuck it, let's try again. And they take off and crash again. I hope that happens. Sincerely, I hope it. And he tries to he goes, well, how are you going to feel now if my plane crashes after you went and said that? I'm like, are you shitting me? That would be amazing. To know that I can do that? I'd happily trade your life for knowledge of my powers. He's one of those guys who just makes you hate him because, when you have a friend that you hate, you can't break up with your friends, He always starts conversations that I don't want to have. He's like, hey, what would you do if you had a time machine? I'm like, fuck you. I don't. You know what? I wouldn't use it. I just let it sit in my house. I put a drink on it, and I got a time machine. I never even wanted it. I don't know. Not interested. I'd use it to go back 30 minutes ago and punch you in the fucking face before you asked me that. That's all. One use.
What I think really broke Louis, and we'll see more examples of it towards the end of this special, but like what people were attracted to in him is I think I'm getting this right from a psychological standpoint, like the id that in all of us that we related to, where like Louis would talk about things where it's kind of in the back of your mind, but maybe you didn't vocalize, or at least in mixed company, you would never bring this up. And Louis would just say it on a stage. and in a matter-of-fact way to say, like, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, whether or not you would want to admit it. And that's what gets gut laughs, is when people point out things that you never want to admit to you, even maybe to yourself, you know? Exactly. And that's what Louie was so good at. And I think that did kind of change, in a way, the way a lot of comedians talked and the way a lot of people talk in general. You started to see that bluntness. Like, you hear it a lot on podcasts. And I think that's, you know, Howard Stern and Tough Crowd and all these other programs had that influence as well. But what was interesting about Louie is, like, we mentioned Nick DiPaolo and Jim Norton earlier. Those are two guys, like, Louie is just as dirty and crass as them and blunt. And so as I was listening to that, I was wondering, why is Louie so much more successful than these guys who are genuinely very funny? And it's because I should say more mainstream is the question I'm asking. Like, why was Louie, you know, kind of allowed in the mainstream for a long time? Because if you remember, when Daniel Tosh got canceled, there was this weird argument where I think it was Lindy West was the one that said this. That Louis C.K. is allowed to make rape jokes because he does them well. Which they're ironically how their argument turned over the years, but but he even had, like, liberal people, like super progressive people, laughing at this humor that they shouldn't be, and I think it's because he presents it in such a matter-of-fact way and in a way that we can relate to, where it's like, oh, I've thought of that in that exact same way, and I feel like almost guilty admitting it, you know?
That and, like, with the DiPaolo, I think politics does play a role in that.
DiPaolo for sure, but like Norton's a very funny guy. I'm not saying Norton's as funny as Louie, but like if you look at how, like, you forget, like, Louie's a filthy comedian. Oh, like, if you just put you couldn't, if he couldn't do a set on NBC or something. Yet he was very accepted by the mainstream.
I think because it might also be because DiPaolo and Norton both are, like, aggressive talkers on stage, and he's very relaxed.
Yeah, that might be actually a better way of what I'm trying to say, where those guys are very aggressive and it comes through. Whereas while, like, Louie might be saying just as aggressive things, but it flows very naturally and it feels like just kind of you're having a innocent conversation. Right, exactly. But next we have him talking about Hitler. Excellent.
So he said if he had a time machine, he would kill Hitler. Like, he would go back and kill Hitler. I love that he thinks he can just kill Hitler just because he just goes back there and walk up and kill the dude. And I was thinking, that's a noble purpose for a time machine. I would do it, but I would have gone back then, but I wouldn't have killed Hitler. I would have raped him. That's what I thought. Because I think that would have been enough. I think that would have stopped him from doing all that shit. If he had been raped by me, he never would have pulled any of that stuff, man. Should we invade Poland? No, I'll just take a shower. I don't feel good. Low self-esteem, and, you know.
A very, like, again, something that's been, like, talked about and, like, oh, I'd go back and kill Hitler. The idea of raping Hitler, just that little twist on that. And then, you know, we always talk about influence on here. A few years later, I think it was New in Town, where John Mulaney had sort of a similar premise, but the joke was like, are you saying, like, when I kill an old man that I perceive to look like Hitler? Why did you kill that old man? And I'm like, he looked like Hitler. And everyone's like, yeah, a little. But yeah, like, that's what I'm talking about, where these, like, concepts that people talk about, Louie's able to twist them in a way. And again, he's talking about raping Hitler. Two things that mixed company doesn't like to joke about, but he was a guy that was, you know, very much accepted. I think that's a safe topic if you're gonna talk about raping somebody. He's on the right side of history in that one. I'll give him that. Yeah, he's raping the right person. But next, this doesn't age well for old So Louie. Yeah, I just wanted to throw this in because it's a clip that got thrown around a lot when Louie got canceled. Now, I don't think this is an admission. This is what people tried to spin it that way during the Me Too movement.
Obviously, you should never rape anyone unless you have a reason, like you want to fuck somebody and they won't let you, in which case, what other option do you have? How else are you supposed to have an orgasm in their body if you don't rape them? I mean, what the fuck?
That laugh.
Okay, that's fucked up.
That laugh is just...
Now, listen, I'm a guy that's defended Louis C.K.'s side of that whole cancellation. I think people took a lot of stuff that happened out of context it was reported incorrectly. But when you play a joke like that, and like that's what people would do at that time, is like, well, he thinks things like this. It's like, well, he was joking. He was on a stage, you know.
That part at the end where he goes, "All right, that's fucked up." I don't think they had that part in there.
No, probably not. But it's also different. People would be like, it's exactly like the Spanish fly bit from Bill Cosby. Like he's leaving breadcrumbs. And it's like, no, I don't think so. Like Bill Cosby had an insight into something that would allow you to take advantage of women, where this is just a funny thought, in my opinion. But
if you listen to that Spanish fly bit, there's really not any jokes. He's just telling you what to do.
It's just a man who knows too much. Yeah, I don't know. Sound off in the comments, guys. Louis C.K, guilty or innocent? What do you think?
Yeah, let us know. Next we have Awesome Possum.
So this is, well, this deserves a little setup because it is what Louis became great at. And now, again, talking about influence, it's what you see a lot of people do. This was ripped off a lot. Something that Louis C.K, I think, kind of created. Again, leave a comment if you guys can pinpoint someone that did it before Louis. But he would mention, so he'd say that he has this Awesome Possum shirt that he bought. And he'd go, I got it as a gift. Fuck you, I liked it, whatever. But that leads him into a rant about like hipster. It was too long to clip. It wouldn't make sense to listen to a 5-minute bit where he veers off in this totally different direction, talking about coffee shops and these kind of douchebags that inhabit it. And he goes off in this rant and then brings it back to where we are. So he's wearing this Awesome Possum shirt. And it's a misdirection in a way, like, you know, misdirections have been done forever in comedy, obviously. But it was always just a punchline you weren't expecting. Where this is like, Louis makes you forget what he was talking about. And then the punchline is him getting back on track, essentially.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, so I was in the coffee place with the young people. And they're... And I'm standing in the doorway just fantasizing about walking around just hitting their cups to the floor like this, you know. Fucking bagel and coffee and bagel. And I see this guy, he's like 20 years old, and he has the Awesome Possum shirt, just like mine. So I went like this, I went like, hey, nice shirt. And he went, and he walked away like I'm a piece of shit. And I stood there and I was so mad. I just thought, fuck him, man. We have the same shirt. It's an unusual shirt. It's perfectly appropriate to fucking do this shit. Why does he have to make me feel like an old fag just because I want to make a connection with another human being? Is his generation just too cool and ironic? Ew, that's lame. The older guy wanted to... fucking young cunt. I hope he dies. Like that's how mad I was. And as I'm standing there, like in that anger, I look down and I realize I'm not wearing the shirt. I don't have it. I don't know why I thought I did. I saw his and went, don't be dude.
It's funny because like and this is where maybe in my scathing takedown of Jerry Seinfeld in an early episode, I probably didn't give Jerry enough credit for how much influence his stand-up did have, because it's like with someone like Louis, you wouldn't think they had any Seinfeld in them really. But
Right.
like what he's doing there is completely Seinfeld, where it's making it like we weren't there to experience it. We don't know what the fucking t-shirt looks like or anything. And even on this episode, we're only listening to the audio because YouTube would take us down otherwise. So we can't even get like the gestures, but you can feel the feelings that he
Right.
would be experiencing in that moment. And that's what Seinfeld was very good at, was taking these just kind of, minuscule human reactions, examining the minutia of these, interactions that people have. And even if it's not the exact same scenario, you feel for it. Regan, like the Regan take luck bit is also like that, where it's like, or just, waving when at a person that's not actually waving at you, something like that. It's a little thing that you can stretch into something funny because people relate to it. And when you listen to Louis, you wouldn't be like, oh, he has a lot of Seinfeld or Regan in him. But he does. Like, he is very observational and just talks about a lot, Woody Allen. I think clearly Woody Allen is a inspiration of
Imagine
Louis.
Yeah, imagine if he started this bit with "What's the deal with coffee shops?"
Right. Then it feels corny, but Louis puts his own
Right.
twist on it. Like it, but it is similar. Yeah.
Next we have "Bag of Dicks."
So maybe I'm wrong. I swear I had never heard that term in my. Now I hear it almost daily.
Right.
Suck a bag of dicks.
Right.
But I don't think I ever heard that before. It feels like a Louis creation, but maybe I'm giving him too much credit.
Yeah, he also does in this more or less admit that he didn't invent it; he just heard it.
Sure, but he certainly popularized it. At least I think so.
Oh, that's probably for sure.
Yeah.
Finally, we get to a red light, and I gotta face him, only because there's a car in front of me. Otherwise, I would have fucking blown right through there. But there he is, just fucking furious, and I'm like, I know it was awful. I shouldn't have done it. I'm not mad. I was wrong. Why would I be mad? And he's like, well, fuck you. And then he starts going like this because he wants me to roll my window down. Like I'm supposed to take part in my own abuse during this argument. You know, well, I'm sorry. I don't want to miss this. What do you have to say about this? How rude of me to shut out your anger with my... So I did. I rolled it down. I'm interested. And he goes, hey, asshole. And I'm like, yeah. He says, suck a bag of dicks. And then he drove away. And I was kind of sad that he drove away because I had a lot of questions. That concept of sucking a bag of dicks, it's just weird. Like, first of all, when you picture a bag of dicks, what do you see when you picture a bag of dicks? Is it like a plastic bag and they're all mushed in together like chicken parts and with a date written on it with Sharpie, keep it in the freezer? Or is it like a paper bag and they're sticking out like baguettes, kind of like you went shopping? Bringing home a bag of dicks for the kids? Here you go, Susie, take a blue one, you know, like a little...
I pictured the first one, but if you were sucking each dick, the second one would be more.
See, I
efficient,
I pictured the baguette style.
Yeah, interesting. Well, everyone has their own spin on it.
That's right.
But to me, like I like the suck a bag of dicks thing, like that. It got quoted a lot, and like I said, I think he popularized that term. Unless you guys know of a different origin, leave a comment. But what I take most from that bit as we break it down is like it's again the id that we were talking about, where he approaches this from I'm completely in the wrong, like I'm cutting this guy in traffic, I'm an asshole, and I'm kind of laughing about it.
Right.
And it's him relating to us like he's not making excuses, he's relating to like a guilty part of us, where not me obviously because I don't drive, but the rest of you people are like, yeah, I kind of done that, or in some form you can relate to being a prick to someone where there's no consequence and you're not really caring. You're like, oh, I've done that in my life. And Louis is just very freely admitting it. And that's the part of you that he appeals to.
Yeah, he's one of a kind. That's for damn sure.
Yes.
Next, we have a stereotype.
All right.
The only thing that bums me out though is that you're not supposed to laugh at gay people when they're funny, because sometimes they just are. They're funny. Like I lived in New York for a lot of my life, and in my neighborhood everybody was gay, and it you know, some guys are just a guy walking down the street, but some gay guys are a guy in little shorts and a half shirt and, you know, combat boots spray painted green and a whistle, and he's standing on the corner going, "Hello, it's fucking hot outside." That's not a stereotype. Those guys fucking exist by the thousands. And when I see them, I laugh really loud. I just do. And people are like, don't laugh at him because he's gay. No, I'm not laughing because he's fucking weird and silly. He's hilarious. How am I supposed to react? Hello? Oh, hello. Hello, yes. Seriousness is, yes. It's stupid.
It's like I always say about Norman Lear. I think Louis has a little of that in him, where he had a great deal of influence, and people would say like you're a trailblazer, or you know you've broken down the barriers for comedians and like people coming up in the business that want to say what they want. And Louis has a lot of that. Like he makes legitimate points about language. Like I said, like the way he talks about the N word or the F word, he made points about that I would hear people years later make in actual arguments. Like we said with Patrice about the Natalie Holloway bit, where he's like, they wouldn't report that about a black girl, essentially. That was literally said on the news a couple of years ago. Like that was an argument they were having, not on a comedy stage. Louis the same way, where he'll make points like that, and people would go, "Oh, that's very interesting," and then we just kind of forget them over the year. Like we don't take that into account ever. Like with that point with stereotypes, it's like I would say I'm allowed to say it about Italians, so I'll use them. Like there are dumb, over-the-top, stereotype-like Italians that exist out there. That's a funny person to make fun of. Doesn't mean you're making fun of the entire group or whatever. It's funny to make fun of stereotypes because in some form they exist somewhere. That stereotype started somewhere. It doesn't mean all people are like that, you know?
Right.
And so that's a point that like Louis makes and gets laughed, but it never, for whatever reason in society, it doesn't stick. When a good point like that is made in comedy, whether it's Norman Lear or Louis or Larry David or Woody Allen, for whatever reason, we can all laugh at it and go, "Oh, that's an interesting point. I never thought of it that way." And then we all forget when it comes to a different situation.
Next, we have learning to jerk off. Okay.
This was devastating for humanity that Louis learned how to jerk off. But this is something that did stick with me because you guys are going to learn a little bit about me. I was a victim of the same ignorance as a boy.
Anyway, Jeff did it totally differently. Jeff didn't, we would lie on his stomach. He would lay on his stomach and press his dick into his palm really hard, and he enjoyed the pressure. And some kids do it like that. I looked it up on, by the way, it fucks your dick up, so don't do it. Don't do it. It does fuck your dick up. But he didn't know, so he was pushing his dick into his palm. And I think sometimes he would put a book on behind his hand, like he just liked the pressure. And he couldn't get enough pressure. So he said to me, maybe if I sat on his ass while he did this, it would be better. So I did. I sat on his ass. And I remember that moment. I'm sitting on Jeff's ass while he jerked himself off. And I remember thinking to myself, is this gay that I'm doing this? Or am I just a really good friend? Maybe I'm just a good friend. It's weird to think now that I fucking sat on an 11-year-old boy's ass while he masturbated.
I forgot the turn that bit took. I should note, I meant that I used the pressure. Like I would face down and hump a pillow, essentially. That's how I first started drinking. I didn't have anyone sit on me. I forgot the turn that it took. I was a victim. I was just a kid. But yeah, like, I wanted to play that bit because you're going to listen to that, the subject matter that he's talking about, and tell me he's even 1% less filthy than Dice or Artie Lang or anyone like that absolutely wouldn't be accepted in the mainstream. I mean, they might get like HBO specials and stuff like that, but they wouldn't be invited to award shows and all these things that, like, you know, make movies with big actors like Meryl Streep and Steve Buscemi, and these people were in things that Louis produced, like Horace and Pete, you know, Edie Falco, like all these big respected actors and actresses were in Louis' stuff. Like, there's no way Dice could have done that, or these filthy guys that we're talking about. Even like Attell, who's really respected in comedy, but never had like mainstream acceptance the way Louis did. And it's like Craig said earlier, it's like there's a charm to the way he's saying it. There's something about the matter-of-fact nature that he is doing this in. It's not as aggressive and you know, in your face as a lot of those other guys are.
This section is fun listening to now, because when I first heard this, I didn't have kids, and now he's just gonna shit on them for the remainder of the special.
Yeah, I was kind of waiting. I was like, oh, maybe this isn't the one. So what broke Louis, I mean, there's a couple different things. Like, I think in the full episode we did about Louis C.K., we talked about the Conan bit kind of breaking him, talking about Wi-Fi on airplanes. And that was a big deal for him. But what broke him as far as like the audience connecting with him was Louis talking about his marriage and kids. And for the, you know, first 40 minutes of the special or so. I was like, oh, maybe it's not in. Maybe he doesn't get to it in this one. Maybe it's a later special that he starts diving into that material. But no, I was wrong. The last 20 minutes or so, you realize how bitter he is about his marriage.
It's really the kids that do you in as a man. We have 2 kids. That's fucking stupid. Don't do that because you just. Mainly what it does to a marriage, it just changes the way that you think about your spouse. Because when you're married, when you first get married, you have a relationship that's so important to you and you're working on it together. But then you have a kid and you look at your kid and you go, holy shit, this is my child. She has my DNA. She has my name. I would die for her. And you look at your spouse and go, who the fuck are you? You're a stranger. Why do I take shit from you? But it's the kids that make it very hard. We have 2. We have a baby, and I don't really know the baby, to tell you the truth, because she hasn't said anything, so I don't really know her. I like her, she's fine, but I don't know her. How do I know what she's really like? Maybe she fucking hates Jews. I don't know. I don't know nothing about her.
Oh, like forever in comedy, it was like, you know, you bash your wife, but you do it in like a PG way. Take my wife, please, that sort of thing.
Right.
And then it kind of became like, you know, like Dice and Kinnison were certainly more vulgar towards women, but that was like just straight, like, you know, absurdity and vulgarity. What Louis did is kind of combine the two in a way where it's like, you can feel that he loves his wife and kids and also resents them every day of his life.
Yeah.
And again, it's that dark part of you that you don't want to admit exists, but on some days it just does. Like, it doesn't mean you hate your kid, but if they've been crying for 4 hours and you can't get them to shut the fuck up, or, you know, you can't get them out of the house, or they're causing a scene in public or whatever, in those moments, those fleeting moments, you do hate their guts.
Right.
I would imagine. I'm not a parent.
Yes.
I'm just guessing.
Yes.
You know, so there are things. Actually, being a non-parent might give me some perspective in this, because I would say, like, just as a human being, if my friend's kids or my niece and nephew or whatever were doing that, you'd be like, oh, Jesus Christ, shut the fuck up.
Oh,
that
no,
doesn't change in you as a person. You just love these kids now.
Yeah, it is different, because I remember
Yeah.
being like, because before, if it's not your kid, you can be like, all right, I'm gonna walk away.
I can leave, yeah.
But when you're like exhausted from a long day, and you know your kid just wants Cheez-Its and there isn't any in the house at the moment.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
just
that's what Louis, I forget if we have Louis talking about it in one of these clips, but he does talk about that, where he's like, I can't leave these things. Like, I unfortunately, I love them.
right.
And that's the part of Louis that connected with a lot of people, to where, like, your parents could watch a Louis special. And like I said, he's talking about, there's a lot of vulgarity in it, and it would be R-rated and all of that. But, you know, your parents could relate to it because it was done in such a way that we're all, you know, human beings can connect to.
Yeah, and here he is talking about keeping them alive.
Oh, so this is what I was referring to, I think.
I start the AC, then I put the groceries in, then I go to get my daughter out of the stroller. I got down there and I realized that the exhaust pipe is right in her fucking face. It's just fucking... I'm like, fuck! I almost killed my kid in the dumbest fucking way ever! If she died like that, I couldn't tell her mom. I couldn't fucking go home with that story. Well, I put her in that fucking, I don't know, I didn't realize. Fuck you. I just, fuck, I don't know. I'd have to throw her into traffic. Help! You know, there's better to actually tell her that I threw her into traffic.
You know, I just got reminded, because if it's a dead baby joke, I was reminded of Anthony Jeselnik.
Mm-hmm.
Jeselnik's good at that, where it's like his shit's insanely dark, but I think because it's almost like a magic trick what Anthony Jeselnik does, is he gives you a premise and then gives you an absurd amount of time, like a final exam's worth of time, to guess what he's going to say, and he still shocks you.
You can never guess.
I think because of that, like, magic trick that he does, Jeselnik's sort of accepted by all walks of life, even though it's really dark humor. And I think there's an element of that to Louie as well, where it's like, holy shit, I didn't see it going in that direction. The idea that bit ends with him throwing his child into traffic is something you weren't guessing, I don't think.
No, definitely not. But here kids continued. They're assholes.
Oh, but let me just say this real quick too. Is like that is a thing. Like whether you want to admit it or not, that is a thing. Is like if my kid died, I'd rather it be this way than that way because then it's not my fault. That's not a thing you would volunteer at a dinner party, but it is a thing people just naturally would think about.
Yeah, one's a fluke and one's you're a fucking moron.
Right. Yes, and those thoughts cross your mind as a parent, and Louie was great at bringing that out of the audience.
The other kid we have is she's a girl and she's 4 and she's also a fucking asshole. It's true, man. I'm serious. I say that with no remorse. Fucking asshole. She's a douchebag. She is. Fucking jerk. The other day, I'm like, put your shoes on. We're trying to leave. Put your shoes on, please. Put your shoes on. Put your shoes on. How many times can you say that to somebody before you just want to kick them right in the fucking face? Seriously, if you're with a group of people that are trying to go somewhere and you can't go because a member of your party just refuses to put their shoes on, that person is a fucking asshole, okay? You don't do that to people. Imagine being with a group, hey, we can't go. Why? Because fucking Bill won't put his shoes on. He just won't put them on. Fuck, Bill, what's your problem? I don't want to put them on. Fuck you. Fucking kids suck. Seriously. The other day, I walk in the kitchen. She's talking to my wife. She says, Mama, I saw a doggy today. And I was like, really? Where did you see a doggy? And she's like, I'm telling Mama, not you. I'm like, hey, fuck you. I'm just asking to be nice anyway. What, you think I actually give a shit about the dog you saw? Like that was going to be an awesome story that you saw a fucking dog. Who gives a shit? I got better stories than you. I have an interesting life. I'm on fucking television. I won an Emmy. You don't ask me what fucking happened to me today, you little bitch.
Joe List is a great line that's definitely influenced by that. Like Joe List opened for Louie for many years, and they made a movie together. They're good friends. But List has a line where he's in a hotel pool, and a little kid turns to his mom and points at Joe and says, "Mama, I don't like that man." And Joe's like, "Well, fuck you. I have 70,000 Twitter followers. 4 people like you. What the fuck do you know?" but another line that made me think of is, it's like I was talking about with comedians would always teeter on the brink of saying my kid's an asshole. Like without saying it, they would say my kids are, stressing me out. They annoy me, whatever. Like, I always loved the Gaffigan joke about like bringing his kids to Disney World and saying like he can relate to his father now. And he goes, do you remember every time you go on vacation, you'd always think to yourself, why is dad always in a bad mood?
It's one of my favorite.
But like there was always stuff like that in comedy where you could feel them thinking my kid's an asshole. What broke through with Louie for a lot of people was him directly saying, my child is a fucking asshole. Like, imagine if someone else of age behaved that way. He would call them an asshole. And so that's where Louie resonated with a lot of people, is just his directness.
I just enjoy Bill being like, I don't know, I just don't want to put my shoes on.
You know what's interesting about that directness too is like it's hard for other people to replicate it because then it kind of becomes hack. Like what's interesting about Louie is he was the first to do this. To just say my kid's an asshole, you're like, holy shit. To be the second to do it, it's kind of like, okay, well now you're just ripping off Louie and you have no punchlines. So I think a lot of people tried to just do that and they came off as, edgelords, but with no actual material,
Right. But he continues here with his kids, and they're also gross.
Okay, yeah, very similar, but I think you'll get the point.
I don't know. I love my daughter, but people really don't get what it's like with a kid full time. Well, we parents make you love our kids because we dress them up and take them out. Look at it, and everybody goes, "Oh, nice." But you don't know what she's like when she comes home. The dress comes off. She fucking rubs her ass in mud. She's fucking gross. She won't fucking take a bath. Like you can. Once you have a baby, you can't force the kid. Fuck her. Let her sleep in her clothes. I'm not dealing with it tonight. Her hair gets clumpy. She stinks. Sometimes it's like fucking just fucking rancid, stinky fucking kid. She fucking in front of people. She like scratches her asshole in front of people, like fucking deep asshole scratching in the fucking panties, and then she smells her finger. That's the kind of person I'm talking about. She's disgusting. The other day I come home and she's just laying on the carpet with just spread eagle naked, and she's just stretching her vagina open, going just fucking holding it open. I'm like, fuck, shit, okay. Wow. That's wow. Don't react. I can't go, I can't do that. That'll fuck her up. Just go, hello, hi, how are you? Hi, how's school? Okay.
Hello, how are you? Well, what I'm realizing too with these bits is like, I keep talking about how Louis connected with parents, but like me as someone who's not a parent, he's also connecting with people who don't have kids yet, like that might be in a relationship and don't have kids yet, or thinking about kids, or don't want kids, whatever. He's connecting with anyone that's thought about kids, because he's also tapping into exactly what people wouldn't want about, like the negatives about kids.
Right.
Where you're like, but you got to keep them alive and keep them clean and keep them fed. Like it seems exhausting. So he's connecting with the parents that are exhausted and the people that don't have kids that are in fear of that exhaustion someday taking over their lives. So it is a way of connecting with everybody.
That's exactly correct. Yes.
Yeah.
This is our last clip.
Wow, this flew by. So we've got the closer here. I forgot. So if you go and watch this on YouTube, I didn't include the next part, but there's also, I'm assuming from his HBO half hour, it was like the second half of this, because when I clicked on the link, it was an hour and a half long. And I was like, I don't remember Shameless being that long. But I think in the YouTube version, they included his maybe HBO half hour or Comedy Central half hour. I'm not sure which, but check that out if you'd like. You can tell it's a little earlier, Louie. But this is the closer to Shameless.
But no, it's hard having kids and being married. It's difficult, and whatever. But one thing it's made me is it's impossible for me to have any sympathy for single people. I just don't give a shit about single people. I don't dislike single people, but I don't get whenever single people complain about anything, I really want them to just shut the fuck up. Because first of all, if you're single, your life has no consequence on the earth. Even if you're helping people aggressively, which you're fucking not, nobody gives a shit what happens to you. You can die and it actually doesn't matter. It doesn't. Your mother will cry, whatever, but otherwise nobody gives a shit. I can't die. I got 2 kids and my wife doesn't fucking work, so I don't get to die. I can die. I love her, but she's a painter. Great. Paint a dollar, take some pressure off, please. But single people, when they complain, like we don't complain. When you ask a parent, hey, how's the family? We go, great. That's all we ever say. It's never fucking great. But we say great because we're not going to tell you, well, my wife assassinated my sexual identity and my children are eating my dreams. We don't fucking bother you with that. We just say great. But if you ask a single person, how's it going? They're like, well, my apartment doesn't get enough southern light and the carpeting is getting a little moldy. You know what you should do? Burn it down and kill yourself because nobody fucking cares. My girlfriend doesn't like the same music as me and she acts bored at parties. We fucking call her and say, fuck you, and hang up and leave her. You can end that shit with a phone call. I need a fucking gun and a plane ticket and bleach and shit. I need a whole bunch of... Thank you guys very much. You've been really great.
So, and that's another one where I know I'm kind of repeating the same point, but like, as a single guy, while he's saying like essentially "fuck you," I'm connecting it to it in a way where it's like is kind of true. Like, we do bitch about things where when you ask like a married couple, your friends, your parents, whatever, they're like, oh, everything's fine. They don't just bitch nonstop about how frustrating it is to have children. You know,
Right.
maybe in some private moments they will if you loosen them up, but just on a like, how's it going, surface level conversation, they don't complain. And you realize that as a single person, and that's what he's doing, is making you again connect to that emotion. So like, to me, that's why Louie is like one of my favorites ever, because he was very real, even in his absurdity. Like, when he had absurd bits and everything, he made you kind of reflect on some of your own human interactions, and that's what he was and still is really brilliant at.
Yeah.
Possibly another benefit of getting canceled is that I think his last three now, yeah, Sincerely Sorry and At the Dolby, all great specials. And I think that's why you're getting good specials well into his 50s, is because he never made that jump, even though he almost did, to being Steve Martin or Robin Williams or Woody Allen or this filmmaker. Like, we almost lost him in that respect, and I think he would have made very good movies, whatever. Like, the TV show was obviously tremendous.
Yep.
And I haven't watched much of Horace and Pete, but a lot of people love that. The episodes I've seen are very good, obviously. But yeah, like, the reason I think Louie is still good and well into his 50s is that he does have that perspective. And the other interesting thing about Louie is, like, you're hearing him talk right now, he's about 40 years old in 2007, and he has not broken yet. Like, people would talk about that when Louie got canceled a lot because he was like a head writer on the Chris Rock show. On that set, he did have power. So, like, the situation where it was with a coworker, I understand that. But, like, the idea that he was like this crazy powerful guy, like, he had not broken until really 2009-10 is when he started to get massively popular. Like, obviously he was a headliner at this point, but like, the reason for that, I think, and just think of this when you see some comics, and I tell myself this, like, I always, Joe List is a guy I mention all the time, already did on this episode, and I always think, like, I wish he was bigger, because I think he's one of the two best comedians working today. Which I don't know why I think that. It doesn't make him any funnier if he's bigger or not, but you kind of root for these guys. Right. But what's interesting about Joe is, like, he might be similar in that, like, he just had a kid now. Like, maybe he's a guy that he's very similar to Larry David. So maybe, like, with age, Joe will just get funnier, because I don't think we should have known Louie as a 25-year-old comedian. You know what I mean? Like, what made him kind of a miserable husband and father made him an amazing comedian. So I think there is something to be said for, like, there's a reason guys like Burr and Louie might not break until their 40s, you know?
Yep. Lot of the
with someone like Rodney, I don't know why why Rodney didn't break until he was well into his 50s, but
yeah, I think he was like 86.
Yeah. Well, like, he's just a joke writer. Like, you know what, man, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it was weird, especially at that time, to see a 28-year-old talking about how ugly he is and how his wife doesn't like him or something, you know? maybe he needed to be an old man for that to be relatable.
He had like grandpa energy, kind of.
Yeah. So yeah, something that's food for thought. I don't know, any other thoughts on Louie before we wrap up here?
Nope. I'm not happy to see anyone get falsely canceled, but this might be the one scenario in which I kind of am.
It might have leveled him out a bit, weirdly, where we still get the great comic.
Yeah, he was on late night
sucks
shows.
for his life.
Yeah,
and obviously, I'm sure his kids don't love that was brought up in the public eye and everything. But
and trust me, I know how absurd it is to what it sounds like I'm saying, because he lost $38 million that day or something
in
like
a day.
That. Yeah,
and as he said in one of his specials, like, Obama knows my kink now.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But he's going on late night shows in the suit promoting Hillary Clinton. I just didn't need that. I need this
Craig
guy.
always makes it political, but
that was the problem.
Fun way to wrap up, okay?
I have the same thoughts with Nick DiPaolo, because he doesn't even like do stand up anymore. It's annoying.
No, I know what you're saying. Yeah. So guys, let me know what you thought in the comments, and if you want to support the show for free, comment everywhere, wherever you get podcasts, share it, tell your friends, whatever. If you have people that are into comedy, something like this that they could get into, let them know about it. Put it on your Instagram story and TikTok, whatever the kids do these days. Let the people know. And easiest way to find all those links is blindmike.net. You can also become a paid member on Patreon or YouTube. You get bonus episodes, you get early access. So consider that if you like the program as well. Blindmike.net is the easiest way to find all of those links. And you can also support the Craigster, Craigers as he's known in the streets and the preschools. It's verygoodshow.org is where you can find all of his links.
Yes, please visit. I appreciate it.
Rubbed Out is the true crime podcast that he does, and Very Good Show. So check those out. And we will see you guys next time on Why Are You Laughing?
Zip it up and zip it out.